just about starting. There we go. Now we're starting, I believe. It says it's live. There we got some viewers, and everyone's happy. Well, hopefully everyone's happy. Just going to scooch my chair up a little bit here. All right. And we should be good. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're at. Got a good afternoon from Belgium and Atlanta, where I'm assuming it's morning in Atlanta. It's not currently snowing, but it has been a snowy week. Not terrible for Wisconsin. We only maybe got a total over the course of the week of maybe 3, maybe 4 inches tops. So, you know, nothing serious for around here. Yeah, so it's been some shoveling and stuff like that, you know, but it's going to get, if the forecast is to be believed, it's going to get a little warmer in the next couple of days, so it's going to get kind of slushy, which is never particularly fun. So, afternoon from England, good day from Finland, Virginia, Calgary, Canada. It feels extra early this morning. I wonder, it feels a little earlier for me this morning too. Toulouse, France, listening while painting. Excellent. Good use of your time, I would think. You know, the painting part, really. Let's see here. Frozen north of Germany. Good afternoon. Colombia, Malaysia, El Paso, the Philippines, Italy, Portland, Maine. Let's see here. South Australia, Vancouver, Ireland, or Vancouver Island, Canada, and Malaysia. Good morning from Burlington, Vermont, painting my first Death Guard army while I watch. Good morning from Connecticut. 65 and cloudy in Dallas. Typical December weather here. Nice. Yeah, no, it's like I said, it was a bit snowy. It's kind of our first like snow that has stuck this year. It was a little late. Sometimes we get, you know, snow that sticks around starting in early November, but this year it wasn't until more than halfway through. Well, basically, I take that back. Right about halfway through December. So, moderator Matt is checking in from Chicago's First Ward, Serbia, London, Slovakia, Tinley Park, Illinois. Currently painting a single mini for my cousin's army from the Netherlands. Morning from Michigan, Dallas, Fishkill, New York, Bulgaria, Budapest. What else have we got? Colorado and Deadwood, South Dakota. Oh, my parents went through there years and years ago on a vacation after my brother and I had moved out of the house. They told me going through the Badlands and all that stuff. It snowed in Ohio. I don't know if it snows in Ohio all the time or not. I know there are certain areas of the country, like out by like Buffalo and stuff, that got really pounded with snow this so far. But yeah, it's gray in the UK today. Oh, that rhymes. Greetings from the enchanted mitten of Michigan. Weather is about the same here. Yes. So for those of you who aren't from, you know, America or at least from the Midwest or don't know what mittens look like, the state of Michigan is kind of two pieces. There's the upper peninsula, which kind of actually attaches to Wisconsin and sticks up, and then there's the bottom part where like Detroit and Ann Arbor and stuff like that are, and it kind of looks a little bit like a mitten. So if you go look on your map, you'll see the enchanted mitten of lower. If it's upper peninsula, is it then considered to be lower Michigan? I don't know. Or is it just the mitten Michigan part? I'm not sure. Oh, what else have we got here? Good morning from Central Texas. Ooh, Zombo Ice Cream is painting Rotbringer's army. Rotbringers are always a lot of fun. I really enjoyed painting my, well, as you could see from the thumbnail thingy here, this doohick. You know, I do like painting the Nurgle stuff. This is the fetid bloat drone that came in the what do you call it, the Dark Imperium starter box, but my fetid, or no, the Blight Kings, they are a lot of fun to paint, and I've got another 5 that I need to get through sooner versus later. So yes. Matthew Sears says that Sam Lenz is the new Bob Ross. Yeah, I was. A couple of people commented about that on the most recent video, and there'll be another Sam video this week on Friday. We did 4 all in one day, and I'm splitting them up so they're every other week until we get through them. And then after the last video, which will be in January, then if you've been paying attention all the way to the end of the video, you'll notice that we're going to give away those skeletons that he painted, that sepulchral guard. This is the box, but it's not. This is mine. I'm going to paint these, and you don't get those because those are mine. But down in the basement, the box for his painted ones is down there, and he and I signed the box because, you know, I don't know why, but we did. And so yeah, I'll be shipping those to one lucky winner, and there'll be information in a video about how to do that. But just keep watching the videos. They worked out well, and we're gonna be doing more. You know, more into the spring, probably early spring. We'll start doing an entire another series, probably like that, because I'm taking my stuff to his place, to his studio. It's generally easier for us to actually just do a bunch of videos in a row, kind of knock them out, and then, you know, spend a day and then have stuff. So yeah, we'll be doing something like that. Let's see here. Good evening from Romania. Randall asks, Adam, any plans to game over the holidays? That's a good question. Well, I mean, definitely some smaller stuff, like probably Shadespire. A friend of mine at work, we're going to probably get together and do some Shadespire gaming. Very possibly I'm just gonna start bringing it with me to work, actually, and then we'll, you know, eat lunch and stuff like that. But that's not exactly holidays. My family, like my side of the family, is mostly not super into tabletop gaming. My brother does play some video games, like sports type stuff, specifically hockey. On my wife's side of the family, they like tabletop games, but mostly like I don't like, you know, like card games, and I don't mean like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. I mean like, you know, like Rummy or Gin or, you know, Hearts or whatever, that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely. It's pouring rain here in South Louisiana, about 58 degrees, not very Christmas-like. Yeah, you know, as I get older, I find that I'm interested less and less in winter sometimes, especially when it starts. You're just like, ugh. Kind of halfway through winter, you're like, this isn't so bad. I can get used to this. And as it gets, like, really starts to grind down, then you're like, I wish it would go away. So, and that's just, I don't know, maybe an age thing. Maybe that's why a lot of people who live in the north go down to, like, Florida for the, you know, for the winter. But that all being said, I think it would be weird if I lived someplace where it was like 65 on Christmas Day. I mean, you know, to be fair, it has been awfully warm on Christmas Day here once in a while as a fluke, but in general, it's not the case. So, the Noob Painter says, I just got an email from Game 4. Anything going on with that? Yes, something is going on with that. In theory, we're going to be launching the app next week. So I will be doing a little bit more. There'll be more stuff on the social media about it. I will start talking about it a little bit more here. For those of you that don't know, Game 4 is the app that the company that I work for, we've been developing for a couple of years, and it is designed to make it easier for tabletop gamers to be able to find each other. Well, not so much each other, to find events, at which point they will then find each other. But it's not like Tinder for board gamers, as people have, you know, some people have said, oh, it's Tinder for... No, it's not. Because we're not just saying, here's some people who live near you, make some friends. We're instead saying, here's all the events nearby, at the local stores and this and that and the other thing. And so you should go and check out some of these events. And at that point, you will then meet some people and whatever. But it'll be, you know, like, what do you call it? It'll be in public. You know, it's not this kind of weird sort of creeper sort of situation going on, because you're just going to an event in public and you're finding them. You're also able to find stores. If you're going traveling, you'll be able to put in a zip code or a postal code and be able to find, you know, store listings for where you're going. And because it's really hard to find all that information, it's taken us a long time. So yeah. Anyway, that's where it's at. So it's coming very, very soon. And thanks for the softball, noob painter. I see that Gaddis Gaming is here. That's cool. And Gaddis Gaming's got a game called Shattered Crown, which he was demoing at Tabletop Minions Expo, TMX, this past June. And new miniatures being cast. And he says that he's going to get Sam, actually, to paint them up for him. Cool. That'll be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing those. Excuse me. Ian? I've got a friend who pronounces it Ian, even though most people pronounce it Ian, but so I'm going to say both and cover my bases. Anyway, says, a new kitten at my house, so no painting today, but I'm not sad. Well, sure, new kitten. It's hard to be sad with a kitten. I mean, that's kind of, you know, it's difficult. Let's see here. What else have we got? Josh McCarthy says they posted pictures of the just printed masters on the Kickstart update. I'm not quite sure. I think I missed something there. All right. Mecha82 says I'm going to have a lot of hobby work to do with 2 new codices, making possible to make 2 new army lists, and I also have to build some Primaris Marines to build it. I've got a... Well, now the chapter approved has dropped, I've got to go through and look at my points on my 2,000 point Primaris army and see if it's still 2,000 points. But it's all built. It's all built. It's all... the bases are all textured. Everything's ready to go. It's time to prime, but now I need to kind of check and see how that's working though. So yeah. Dakota says, how much is the app? The app will be free. We do have some monetization ideas that we're working with that are going to get implemented, and there'll be stuff that goes from like advertising to if you want to just help support and also get added benefits as a user, certain things, kind of like you know how like Board Game Geek does that thing where they like, hey, if you give us $15 and we'll give you some micro badges and put a fancy thing by your name and all that stuff, when you're in the forums, kind of like that. But you don't have to. Many of the features will basically be free. The base normal features, it'll just be like kind of little add-on things that you might be helping us out by supporting with. And then there's also, like I said, going to be some advertising. And then stores will get to be able to put in a free listing, and they'll be able to put in free events. But if they want access to like analytics they really can't get anywhere else, if they want access to a couple different little features here and there, there's a subscription thing there too. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Emir says, any comments on the upcoming Game of Thrones war game? Probably going to pick up the starter box because it is a great value. Seems to play like simplified Warhammer Fantasy. I know that it's being put out by Cool Mini or not, and I know that it is what I generally refer to as a rank and flank game. So you're not moving individual units, you're moving blocks, like Warhammer Fantasy. I've never liked that style myself. I don't like that style of play, moving blocks of guys. You see it in Kings of War, and I think there's probably some other games they're doing it too. And so when they decided to do it this way, it makes sense to do it this way for them, I think, because of the way the battles are fought in the show, I guess. But it's just not my interest area. Like, you're right, the models do look pretty cool. But yeah, I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. It'll be interesting to see if the license holds up, to people's expectations. Yeah, because I can't think of a lot of like licensed miniatures games that have ever really super worked out. You know what I mean? Like, there was a Terminator Genesis game. I don't know that ever took off huge. You know, there have been different, like, you know, Aliens versus Predator. I've got a copy of 2nd edition in my basement, and it's kind of cool. The upside to it is it's basically you know, it's all one piece. Kind of like Space Hulk, that game, where you're not, it's not so much like, oh, well, they stopped making units for it, now I can't buy any more stuff. This is more of just like, it's kind of a gateway game between board game and miniatures. Again, like Space Hulk. But it's just, instead of being Gene Stealers and Terminators, it's, you know, Colonial Marines and Xenomorphs, and also some Predators. So, yeah. What else we got? Phil Johnson says, my 2,000 point Primaris army got about 200 points cheaper. Yeah, I'll have to run the numbers through Battlescribe and see what happened, and then make some determinations whether I need to add something or take something away. It'll be interesting. Gaddis Gaming says that app will work out really good for game stores. Yeah, I think it will, because we've been working really hard to try to get a really big, like, pre-filled list, not just in America, not just in Canada, but worldwide, and that's been taking some time. But we also want, you know, because there's stuff that we're going to miss. Like when I first did a run at just all the places within 100 miles of here, I missed a place. I was doing most of this research at the office, and I missed a place that I could have probably hit with a bow and arrow if there weren't a couple of buildings in the way. It was like that close. It was like a place that was like half a mile from the office, but I'd just never been in there. So I knew, I'd heard of it, but I'd never been in that shop because it's just board games, and I'd just completely forgotten about it. So, but we've got a better list now, so definitely. What else have we got here? Matthew Sears says, well, the video is acting up for me, but at least I have chat. I hope that it's just working well for most other people. Josh McCarthy says, does Kings of War use square or round bases? Kings of War is very interesting, actually. It uses... You can put them together like square bases, and you can put them on, you know, like a tray and move them around. But the other thing that you can do, because you're not taking units away as the unit takes damage, like you did in Warhammer Fantasy, what you do is instead just make a base that is the size of how, you know, the units, and then you just can glue. You can almost make like a little mobile diorama, and you put like trees in there and do stuff and whatever. And as long as the base is the right size and has roughly the right number of models, they've got a little bit of wiggle room there, then you can make this just piece, and you just move the piece around. And as the piece takes damage, which mostly goes towards morale, actually, kind of, you just have a die that you keep there to mark how much damage it's taken, and then eventually they take off. So you don't peel off like you did in Warhammer Fantasy. You don't take models away. You just basically mark how much damage, and then eventually the unit breaks or whatever and is gone. So yeah, but it's cool though. What else have we got here? Does anyone know of a good bronze, not copper, rattle can primer? Preferably that I can get in the UK without paying an arm and a leg. Gosh, I hope somebody does. I don't. A bronze... I mean, you might look at, and I don't know about a primer, a bronze rattle can primer. That's a very specific thing. I mean, there's some gold, obviously, like you can do the Retributor armor stuff from Games Workshop, but a bronze rattle can primer, I don't know of one. Maybe if somebody else here's, I mean, I know you might be able to find something like that in a normal craft store as opposed to a gaming store, but I don't know if it will work well as a primer. It might be too shiny, and then, you know, paint layers that you try to stick on top of it may run or move around or beat up or whatever. That's a good question. I haven't come across anything like that. Weapon of choice. Could you do a video about how to utilize plastic kits efficiently? How to get the most units/models per kit? Generally trying to avoid having a bunch of useless plastic lying around. Ooh, gosh. Yeah, I mean, potentially. A good reminder, though, actually. I appreciate their Weapon of Choice 77. Today's topic is upcoming video topics, question mark. So what I'm looking for from you guys is video topics, just things you want me to maybe look into possibly doing in 2018, because 2018 is coming, And I'm just looking for kind of new topics and things and just that kind of stuff. Now, before you guys go crazy in the chat, remember the chat is ephemeral like a summer day and does not stick around. So after this is done, the chat is gone, and I probably won't be able to catch it very well and write things down and take notes. So if you've got a good idea and you're in the live show, if you could come back later on and put it in the comments, the normal YouTube comments, that's great. If you're watching this as a recording, then feel free to put the suggestions in the comments right now, because that's all you could do. But if those things are in the chat, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to see them. So yeah. Oh, let me see here. What else have we got? So yeah, if you've got some ideas, that'd be a good idea. As far as being efficient with plastic kits, I don't know that I'm efficient, which is why I have a lot of leftovers quite frequently. I mean, there are ways to take certain kits, and if you can kind of fudge it a little bit, you can sometimes get like extra units out if you use different parts, but it's hard. Especially now with the way that the pieces kind of go together sometimes when they're like much more dynamic poses. Like it's really difficult to do with like the stuff that came in like Dark Imperium or, you know, that kind of stuff, because they only kind of go together one way. The Viper asks, I'm planning on getting Dark Imperium. Does anyone know about how many points of Primaris you get? I want to say it's... I don't know that for sure, but I want to say it's like maybe 800-ish? Maybe? I think that sounds right. Yes. Richard says that All Out War, Walking Dead All Out War is a licensed game, which is awesome. Yeah, that's potentially the... Yeah, I haven't... I've watched it played. I've not played it yet. I like the concept behind it, as far as like the way that the zombies move and they follow sound and all that kind of stuff. Mantic does a bunch of licensed stuff, and that one's turned out well for them. I don't know that Mars Attacks necessarily did, like as far as sales are concerned. It's cool looking. The models are great. But I don't know that it's been selling real well. Whereas I think Walking Dead has been a little better. Definitely, probably better than Mars Attacks. Getting a bunch of suggestions here about brown ink washed over gold primer might work. Talking about the bronze color primer we're looking for. Copper with rust dry brushed over it. It's also a possibility. I could see something like that. Yeah, if you're not able to find a bronze primer in a rattle can, which is probably not going to be something very easy to find, then you may have to kind of go that direction. Video topic, Adam's fashion show. I don't know what even... I am working on designing shirts, though. So I am becoming a fashion designer. And I will, as soon as I get a problem fixed. So here, okay, I'll just let you guys in behind the curtain here. So I'm working with this, print-on-demand site. I have gotten stuff done from them recently, and I like the quality. I remember back in the day when Cafe Press first came out online, and you bought these T-shirts and they looked like garbage. You know, because they were like, basically they would print it onto some sort of transfer material and then hot iron it onto the shirt, and it just looked like garbage. Well, now most of these companies print directly onto the shirts, and they're full color and all that stuff. But the problem is they're frequently really expensive. So I found, just recently, I found a site that I like that is not too expensive, does good work, and has a facility both in the United States and the EU, which I think I've talked about this before. So anyway, my point is that the reason I want to be able to do that is so that people who live overseas can get the shirt without having to pay $1 zillion in shipping. The problem is that when I upload the shirt designs and go through all that rigmarole and I put in the prices, the site screws it up because of VAT, which is I forget what, something tax, I think, value-added tax, probably not. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway. So I've been back and forth in the chat with their people trying to figure out how to make this work properly, and I think that I'm getting closer. So I originally was like hoping to get it all ready to go for Christmas because I'm like, well, then people might want to buy, you know, as gifts. Which actually, when I think about it, if anyone's going to buy any of the shirts, they're probably just going to buy them for themselves. So anyway, it will probably come after the new year is when I will launch, and I'll have a bunch of different designs and stuff. For those of you who are asking, there will be at least one Pachow shirt because I've gotten requests. So there's that. All right, let's see here. So I'm getting a lot of people who are giving me comments about videos to make. I keep putting my elbows on the table and then it makes the camera shake. Sorry. So again, like I said, if you've got an idea that you're looking for, it'd be cool to put it in the comments after the video, so then I'll be able to find it. 6Gunner86 asks, is there going to be a New Year's Sunday show? Yes, there is. There'll be New Year's Eve, I think. So yeah, there'll be a show. Let's see here. Mecha82, I have noticed that in WD... Oh, I'm sorry, White Dwarf. I'm like, WD-40. I have noticed that in White Dwarf 40k bat reps, they now use power ratings over points, and the other army always has the higher one. Oh, interesting. That's weird that they've gone to power ratings. I like the concept of power ratings. I do. It is noticeable, though, sometimes when, at least when the indexes were first out, and you would put out, you'd put out 50 power rating and they'd put out 50 power rating, and then later on you go back and do the math and you'd be like, whoa, those were different. Very different numbers. Gaddis Gaming asks, are you going to be interviewing at Adepticon? Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a good video, kind of like last year where I talked to different painters. I've got some concepts, but I want to do one of those types of videos. Plus I'm going to be doing, I don't know, some other stuff. Terry Latorco, that Terry girl. You've probably seen her videos. She works with Geek and Sundry. She's got a channel. She's a wargamer who talks about all kinds of different stuff beyond wargaming, but mostly wargaming. Value-added tax, I'm being told. It's interesting, the lag time sometimes between what I'm asking and then when it shows up in the chat. But yeah, anyway, she and I did a video on her channel probably, oh gosh, at Adepticon 5 years ago about us being unhappy with Games Workshop and what we thought needed to change and stuff. And it was maybe 15 minutes long. Well, now it's obviously a new day and they've turned things quite around. And so we want to make kind of a follow-up video. So we'll probably do that. I interviewed her and her husband actually last year at Adepticon about being a wargaming couple. So if you've seen that video, you've seen Terry. So anyway, so that's one plan. Another plan, different stuff. I'm going to be doing 2 seminars this year at Adepticon. The first one's sold out. The second one's maybe only got like 2 seats left last I looked. So that'll be a Thursday and Friday. That'll keep me kind of busy. And I'm planning on doing a meetup for those of you who are going to Adepticon. Thinking probably Saturday night, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But I'll have more information about it soon. So yeah. Hi, Uncle Adam. Nice cap. Why, thank you. It's wool, and it's also kind of warm, which is good. And my hair was all messed up, so I just put on a hat. Let's see here. Painting session interrupted. 2-year-old nephew wreaking havoc in painting room. For me, it's, well, not for me. I mean, in the past, it's been cats, but since I've moved into the basement, once we bought the house and I don't let the cats into the basement, then that problem is solved. But just before the show started, I had a cat like here, like trying to I don't know, and she's a lovely girl. Don't get me wrong, but like there's almost no room. There's microphone and mouse and all, and she wanted to just be here, and I'm like, you can't. That's not going to work. So anyway, now she's sleeping someplace because cat. Jay Freeze says liked the chapter approved video, helped out this noob. Well, and that was my plan. I mean, I sometimes I just make a video about like I'm confused about something. And then I try to figure it out. And then once I've figured it out, I figure other people also might be confused about it. And so I might as well, make a video and try to help people out. Like I did that with the Necromunda thing, because I was seeing all these pictures of this two-dimensional board, and I was like, so it's just a board game now? What's going on? And then, you know, I opened up the box because they sent me one early because I asked them to, and went through all that and figured it out, read stuff, and was like, oh, okay, so this is how it goes. And so then I wanted to let people know. I mean, other people might have just already been like, well, yeah, you know, moron, we already knew that. But still, you know, if I was confused about it, maybe others are as well. And so that's really, again, always kind of the mission of the channel, is to help out people who are new or who are new to a specific aspect. They've been in the hobby for a long time, but, you know, something else. Let's see here. Show idea for what does it make sense to use an airbrush when painting? I already did a video about that, actually. It's in my airbrush series, my beginner airbrush series or whatever, and I think it's about when to airbrush and when to not airbrush. So you can go back and check and find out. Hopefully that'll help the answer. Let's see here. Have you looked into any more into Necromunda? Got any preference for gangs? I like the way that the Orlocks look, which are coming soon. I think the Orlocks look really cool. I don't know, again, like I said, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to play it a ton because I've already got Shadow War, which I like. I don't know, we'll see. I mean, I like a lot of the components in there, all the little kind of pieces of scatter terrain and all that kind of junk. I'm definitely going to use that stuff and other things, specifically probably Shadow War. But yeah, I'm not sure yet. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I'm just not sure I want to sit down and paint 20 more, you know, models for a game when I've already got kind of the same game in Shadow War, and got models already painted for that, and you know, I'm almost finished with all my terrain for that too. Now, admittedly, the terrain can be used in both because they've already started showing off the terrain that they came out originally for Shadow War with as Necromunda terrain, which I kind of figured. But yeah, definitely. The Drop Podcast says, I'm so excited for Adepticon this year. Probably I sounded sarcastic accidentally, but I'm sure that he was not, and I'm not either. I'm definitely looking forward to Adepticon this year. I've got the Las Vegas Open before that. That's in late January. Going to that. Doing some seminars there. But yeah. Tips to start a YouTube channel about Warhammer, ? Well, I mean, honestly, that's what my seminars at both Adepticon and LVO are about. One is about the technical stuff, and the other one is more about content, strategy, and branding, and the more marketing kind of stuff. Well, not just marketing, but also just the actual content, and like kind of coming up with like your niche and how to focus on the specific things and stuff like that. So at some point I may make a video for that or something down the road. I get people asking me about the equipment that I use and things like that. I've never really wanted to, I don't know. I've kicked around the idea of starting a second channel to talk about that, but that seems almost like kind of a waste to like start a whole second channel. I'm not sure. Got a bunch of people talking about about commission work and how people, you know, figure out what to charge and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, for people, I've got some commission stuff actually. It's going to be done, I'm assuming, very soon. I sent off, there's a local guy here named Brandon, and he's painting both of my warbands for, I'm having a hard time focusing, sorry. Both my warbands for Frostgrave. So I had built them and I'd done all that stuff and gotten them ready. I mean, they're all kind of converted, you know, because there's no, well, there are models for Frostgrave, but when I built these two warbands, the models weren't out yet. So they've been sitting for quite some time. So I thought, you know, I'll just pay him to do it because he does good work. I'd seen his stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and in person, actually, as it turned out, at a local convention I went to. Anyway, so it's just about done. Should be done by the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me see. What else have we got? Thoughts on doing a magnetization video? I've just got the Tau starter and want to be able to switch out all the weapons on the battle suits. With the Tau, it's a big deal that you want to magnetize as much as possible. Especially, yeah, exactly. On the battle suits, that's definitely a big deal. I just did some magnetization for my Primaris army. I've got the Redemptor Dreadnought, which is the big Dreadnought. and I wanted to be able to swap his right arm. He can either have this heavy onslaught cannon, or you can have some sort of macroplasma decimator apocalypse gun, or I don't know. It's something horrible, like not, you don't want to be hit with it. Anyway, and so I magnetized both of those. It was mostly successful. Like they stay on, but they're a little wiggly when you move them around, which I don't like. But it is what it is at this point. I don't know that I can do much else other than try to put more magnets in it in some way. I don't even know how that would work. So definitely, yeah. Panga says, crap, missed the start. Uncle Adam Live is definitely the best thing to listen to while painting your first commission mini. Late but excited greetings from the Netherlands. Well, good. I'm glad that you're starting to paint some commission stuff. I think that, there are a lot of people who want commission painters, and there are a lot of people who would like to paint more and but also make money off of it. Yeah, I don't know. There should be a website. But yeah, definitely. I'm glad that people are doing more of that, because I just want to see more painted miniatures on the table. So it's a bit selfish, I guess. Any tips on getting white paints to behave? When I use white Scar or other related white paints, it's either super thick or a runny disaster. Well, I don't paint white a lot. When I do, I usually start with a really light gray undercoat in some fashion, whether it's a spray primer or like an airbrush primer or something like that. And then I'll go over it with a white, and I do generally thin it and put it down in a couple of layers over it. And then I use a wash, which I don't even know if you can get anymore. I think it was made by Reaper, and it was called Pale Gray. And then it's this really, really, really kind of light gray wash. And so I'll put a wash over it, and it will just kind of go into all the crevices and just give you a little bit of, detail in but without getting too dark and muddy. And it doesn't really muddy up the flat areas too much. And it's really nice. And then I just go back and do a little bit of highlighting if needs be, with white at the very end. But yeah, white is one of the most difficult colors to do. A lot of people say yellow. I've had better luck with yellow than I have with white. So yeah, it takes some work. Josh McCarthy says, maybe just a second series / playlist on Tabletop Minions for videos and such after your conventions. Yeah, I need to make more playlists, I think. I don't ever generally watch playlists myself, but a lot of people do. And so I need to kind of be cognizant of that. And also, from what I understand, playlists are very helpful from a like YouTube analytics kind of, or not analytics, algorithmic standpoint. Like they help you, like the more playlists that there's all kinds of videos about how to hack playlists and how to make it so that, not hack, but like how to use playlists to get your video ranking up and this and that and the other thing. And of course, most of it is generally conjecture because, there's no, like, YouTube won't tell us specifically how it's done because then people would game the system. That's just like with Google, YouTube, Google, all those guys. None of them tell you how the search algorithm works because then you would try to fake it so that you would get the best ratings or whatever. But yeah, I do use some playlists. I used a bit more in the playlists this year, and I want to try to do some more of that. So yeah, I mean, the actual convention videos, and here's the real trick, is that when I go to a convention, Adepticon or whatever, and I make videos, those videos keep people away in droves. Maybe not that much. They just don't get the views that other videos do. I could talk about something else on a Friday or whatever, some random thing, some technique, something that came out or whatever, and get 2 to 3 to 4 times as many views sometimes as the views that because people just evidently don't want to see videos about conventions, which is weird to me because, again, I love watching videos about conventions, especially ones I've not been to, because then it's kind of like you're there and you can kind of check it out. And maybe you want to go, at some point after you've checked it out. But they don't get a ton of traction. So that's why I don't go nuts and try to make as many as I used to, but I still like to make them. Like, there was one year I made a whole bunch of them, and they just didn't get watched. This was Adepticon. And the next year, I think I barely made one. And then, I was like, well, I don't know. I want to make more than that, but I'm not going to go crazy generally. Like, I'm astounded by the heck is... Oh, that's the doorknob. I was like, what is that thing sticking up? Anyway, I'm amazed by, like, Dawn and Gianna from Beasts of War just cranking out, video after video after video during Adepticon and Gen Con and stuff like that. And because for me, then I don't feel like you get to enjoy the convention as much. So yeah, it's a balancing act. I've got a bunch of people in the chat talking about how to paint white, which is exactly what I like to see. Vince Ventrella put how to paint white video recently. Vince knows what he's doing. I like the way that Vince does his thing. I do. He's a good guy, and I like the way he paints, and I like the way he makes videos about the painting. It seems to be pretty no nonsense. He and I just had a conversation recently because he's looking at buying a new camera. So I tried to give him. He asked for some hints or tips or that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll be seeing some newer looking video coming out of there pretty soon. That'll be cool. Esther says, I don't like messing around with magnets. I had a Crix desecrator that I magnetized, and it made the arms look really wonky. I'm probably not going to do too much more because I mostly paint for hobby. If you paint for hobby because you enjoy it, yeah, then magnetization is really not useful. Magnetization is really only good for gaming purposes. If you're real new and you don't understand what we're talking about when we're talking about magnetization, the concept is that sometimes you want this sergeant to have a plasma pistol, and other times you want that sergeant to have, I don't know, a power sword or something like that. So if you wanted to have both of those things, you'd have to build two sergeants, one with a plasma pistol, one with a sword. Or you could, right here where the arm attaches to the shoulder or whatever, you could put a little tiny, they're called rare earth or neobium, I'm pretty sure that's exactly right, magnets. And you put one in the arm, and then you put one in the shoulder, and you make sure that the puller that they're the same, because otherwise it'll just shoot the arm off, which is bad. You want to make sure the poles are right. Anyway, that allows you then to be able to swap stuff. So if in one game, as you're building your list, you're like, well, here I think I would really like the plasma pistol, you pop that baby on. Or here I really want the sword, you put that on. And then you don't have to build two guys, you just have one guy with multiple arms. It takes some work sometimes. But when you do it right, it can be really helpful. But it's sort of hard sometimes, too, if something's heavier and, like, yeah, it'll look a little wiggly once in a while. Depends. Adam, a thing that makes your channel stand out against other wargaming channels is the production quality. Maybe that's why your audience don't love convention vids. Yeah, maybe, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to do some relatively decent production quality even at the convention. You know, I bring decent cameras and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes the audio, if it's a very loud convention, can be kind of wonky. Moderator Matt can attest to this. Last year, when I interviewed him and Anton and John for Wreckage, I bring, because the convention for me is only about 3 hours away by car, I bring not all of my equipment. I bring most of it. I bring a ton of stuff. So I had lights and multiple microphones and multiple cameras and all that jazz set up in the hotel room. And yeah, so I don't know. I think it's just that a lot of people just don't go to conventions. If you take the entire wargaming kind of world, all of the people, and you look at how many of them actually go to conventions, I think that number is a lot smaller than we may think, especially those of us who like to go to conventions. We just assume, well, everybody likes to go to conventions, because I like to go to conventions. But, it doesn't seem to be the case. I heard an interesting statistic earlier in the year from a guy from Wizards of the Coast. And he was talking at this distributor conference in Madison, Wisconsin, and he was talking to mostly retailers. And I was there with a friend of mine who's a retailer, and he brings me along because he doesn't want to go by himself. And then I get to learn all kinds of cool stuff. And get fed, which is fun too. And anyway, so what the guy from Wizards of the Coast said is that they've been doing surveys and marketing tests and all kinds of stuff like that, and really trying to figure it out for the last 20 years. Now, the game's been older than that. For the last 20 years, they've been really digging deep and trying to figure it out. And they believe at this point, right now, that of the people who buy Magic the Gathering cards, 95% of them never play in a store. Which, when he says that to a room full of store owners, everyone was like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, we don't understand it either, but 95% of the people who play Magic seem to just play it at home and don't play it in stores. And we were all stunned, and you may also be stunned. But that's what the guy from Wizards of the Coast said after they've been doing all this research and surveys and all this stuff, and they think that the majority of the people... So when you go to Friday Night Magic every Friday night and hang out with the same people and stuff like that, you think, well, we're the only people in town that play this game, because we're all here playing. As it turns out, you're a very small sliver as far as Wizards of the Coast can figure out of the people who actually play. Most people are playing with their friends on the kitchen table or whatever and don't go and play at the stores. I think it's the same type of thing with wargaming. I think that I think that most wargamers must go to Adepticon. But I've talked to Hank, one of the guys who runs Adepticon, and he said he runs into 40K players in Chicago who've never heard of Adepticon. And he's like, I don't even know, like, how are we failing as a marketing thing? Like, where you live in the same city and play the game that we started the whole convention around, and you've never heard of it. It's just, it's ships passing in the night. That's the way marketing works sometimes, so it's interesting. Jay Freeze says, I like convention videos because I don't get to go. See, that was my hope. That's why I like to watch convention videos, specifically for conventions that I'm not going to get to go to. So yeah, but different strokes. Dan asks, hey Adam, have you played any Shadespire as the Undead Warband yet? If so, what's your experience like? I have not. I have heard that they are a little difficult. Someone told me, or I saw someplace in a comment or someplace that are like, oh, well, the Orc Warband is easy mode. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, especially with me because I'm bad at strategy. They'll be easy to paint because there's only 4 of them, so I'm looking forward to that. But I've heard from some people that the skeletons are a little bit harder to play. But I haven't played them yet, so I don't know that for sure. What else have we got here? Kitchen table magic is king, says the Drop Podcast. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it's interesting, but it seems to be the case. Like, as a person who goes to a store all the time, and I don't play Magic, I played EDH a little bit. Excuse me. I played EDH a little bit last year. But I don't play a ton, obviously. So, yeah, but, it seems like that's where it all happens when you're there, you know what I mean? But it's not the case. Frankie Lee Bailey says, I've never actually played Magic in a store, and I've been playing since the mid-90s. See, that seems to be the case. Matthew Sears says, I have a weekly EDH league at a store. Yeah, I know you do. And you've been running that for quite some time. EDH is like the one style of Magic, just in case anyone cares, that I could see myself playing more. Like I said, I have played in the past. I've got a deck. It's probably not good. The problem that I was having was I was playing at a store with guys that I know, but they're guys who've been playing for just about since it started. So and what they're doing is, because they've been playing so long, is they're just building these crazy decks that are like, the nuclear option. Nuclear? Excuse me. I got something wrong with my throat, and it's making me mispronounce words. So they've got these crazy decks that if it goes off, like, okay, well, if it goes off, I get an infinity amount of health. You all have to throw your cards in the river. It says it right on. I can't. It's just, and it's just this crazy stuff. And so, as a beginner, jumping into that pool to start playing was not particularly the smartest option. What I should have been doing is try to play with like another 3 people in EDH and all of us be relatively noobs. That would have probably helped. But playing with these guys who are veterans kind of was problematic. Let's see here. Justin says, hang on a second. I apologize. Me in mornings, just the voice does not work. No, shoot, no, it went away. I'm going to scroll back up because I think... Justin says, I think a lot of games are like that. Hobby stores sell Star Wars Armada, but the store doesn't even host the games. Guess they figure home players fuel them. Yeah, I mean, you know, that can also just be a situation with stores, honestly, where if it's a smaller store and it's like a one-person shop, generally, that person has to do the ordering and clean the toilets and also pay the bills, and they also have to dust the stuff on the. And so it's difficult, unless you're a really motivated store owner, it's very difficult to also then try to foster this huge community of people coming in and playing at the store and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes the store size can be problematic as well, like it's too small. It's difficult. Yeah. So, you know, that's the event thing is difficult. And so if people are buying it and you're okay with the numbers, but they never come in and play because they play at home and you don't run events anyway, then you're not necessarily being incentivized to try to run events. If people haven't been buying it, then sometimes, you know, it's a good idea. I think that it has been shown that running Magic events, specifically something like Friday Night Magic, at your store gets people in the store, you know, and gets people buying Magic, and that's fine. And you know, I think that the Wizard or what's the name of the company? Games Workshop. Yes, I think the Games Workshop would be really well served to try to foster some sort of thing like that for Shadespire, because they could have like a Friday Night Magic type thing for Shadespire, Saturday Night Shadespire. I don't know if that really rolls off the tongue, but something like that, and really sort of start pushing it to make, because it can be played so quickly, it can be like a league game or a tournament type game. I mean, they're going to be pushing a lot of tournaments at conventions coming up. I know there's going to be a tournament at, I believe there's going to be one at LVO, and I know there's going to be at least one at Adepticon. So, you know, that's a good idea, but I think they need to get the stores to start pushing it. Now, I know that the Games Workshop stores in general are kind of small and don't have a ton of playroom, but they should be pushing it to the independent stores who do generally have a good deal more playroom. Because you can, in the same spot where you can have two games of Magic, like on the same like regular 6-foot like, you know, conference table that you see at like pretty much every game shop, you could have two games of Shadespire, because it doesn't take up a ton of space. So, you know, something like that would be a smart idea, I think, for getting people to do that. Blood Bowl, I see somebody else just mentioned Blood Bowl. But I could see people doing that kind of thing too. Because again, it's got a small space, you know, it's got a small footprint, so that helps. You know, 4 by 6 foot, that's big. Cheddar Monkey says, throw cards in the river. Wow, that's an expensive side effect of a spell. It is. They should have never made that card. I agree. Let me see here. What else have we got? There's a bunch of people having conversations back and forth, so that's good. A lot depends on who plays in the store. Sometimes you have people who don't want to play with them there. Sometimes you have people who don't want to play with there, so you search for other places to enjoy less competitive games. Yeah, and that's the case with pretty much any kind of, any kind of gaming like that. Maybe not as much board gaming. Man, I don't know about RPGs either. I do see people. I've seen people play RPGs in a store. To my mind, RPGs, and we're getting a little bit off topic here as far as wargaming is concerned, but it's just gaming. Many gamers who are wargamers are also some other kind of gamer. So, I mean, I'm generally not. I pretty much just stick to wargaming, although I did play a little Magic, like I said. But I haven't played board games in a long time, and I haven't played RPGs in a long time. But I do see people who come into stores with their group and they play in the store, which to me is sort of surprising, because I would just think it's noisier and whatever, and you know, you got to pay for snacks more probably because it's, you know, they got to keep the lights on there at the store. Whereas if you play like in your basement with from friends or whatever, you can pop popcorn or whatever. Anyway, so I get that with RPGs. I can't imagine playing RPGs at a convention with people you don't know. Like, I've never played a role-playing game with people that I don't know. For me, at least, it just makes more sense to do it that way. Playing against someone in Magic or playing against someone in like in a war game that you only maybe know a little bit, that I can see. I mean, if you go to a tournament, more often than not, you're playing against people you don't know. So that makes sense. But what else have we got? Adam, do you know if there is tournaments competitive play for 40K, more skirmishy games like Shadow War, Armageddon, or Necromunda? I think there's a Necromunda event at Adepticon. I swear I remember seeing something about it in the event listings for Adepticon, but I don't remember. I don't know if it's a tournament. It might just be maybe it's a tournament. I'm not sure. I didn't see, I don't think, anything for Shadow War at Adepticon, which kind of bums me out. But yeah, I know I saw some events that had something to do with Necromunda. But I just don't know if it's a tournament or not. It'll be very interesting to see. So on Wednesday night, which is kind of the night before Adepticon, technically, coming up in late March. Last year, Games Workshop had an event on Wednesday night, and I wasn't there. I didn't get there till Thursday morning, or almost Thursday lunchtime, actually. But at the event last year, that's where they announced Shadespire. So now the question is, okay, well, what big thing are they going to announce this year? And there haven't really been any hints or tips or anything along that lines. And maybe they won't announce anything big. Maybe they'll just announce, well, we're adding on to this, and we're adding on to this, and there's a new this and a new that, and stuff like that. I don't know if they'll be like, oh, look, and here's another new game that we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll be the new Mordheim, or, people have been talking about Epic 40K or Titanicus or whatever it's called. Maybe they'll finally show that off. And because that was the thing that was interesting, was that not only did they announce Shadespire, but you could play it. It was still beta rules, but they had, the models were done and the boards were kind of, they were like prototype boards, but it worked. So yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff maybe is, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do this year. And this year I am going to be there on Wednesday night. We're leaving actually Wednesday afternoon and driving down to Chicago. Like I said, it's only about 3 hours drive. And then, so I'll be there Wednesday night, and I'll go to that event, which I'm looking forward to. Adam Fire says, thanks for introducing me to other games and companies, too. I've always been blinkered towards Games Workshop. Malifaux looks really tempting to me. Wreckage or TNT look fun also. Yeah, I mean, I like skirmish games, and I really like for me, I like Wreckage a good deal. Actually, I just in the mail received a model from Matthew, and I'm going to be building. There's a new faction that they're releasing called ARC, the ARC faction, which I don't remember what it stands for. At the end, the H and the K stands for Hong Kong. I'm sure Matthew can mention what it means. Yeah, and they just sent Wreckage 2.0 or second edition to the printer, so that's cool. But yeah, I'm going to be doing last episode of this show. I talked about upcoming hobby vlogs, this idea that I've got that I'm going to start doing. And one of the hobby vlog series I'm going to be doing is talking about painting that ARC warband, because they're just kind of cool looking. And so I've only got one warband right now for Wreckage finished, and I was going to do maybe Drifters, but a friend of mine did Drifters, so I didn't want to have two. So then now I'm going to be doing ARC, so I'm looking forward to that. Excuse me. So yeah, I do like playing with the different companies and like the skirmishy games and stuff like that. That's just kind of something that I enjoy. Malifaux, I've got a bunch of painted stuff for Malifaux. I haven't played in a while though, because there's nobody really playing it around here, and I've got other stuff to play, so I haven't been pushing it. But it's a great system, and it's got great it's got great models. Joshua says, Uncle Adam, have you seen the new collab video with GW and Mini Wargaming? It's great to see how liberal GW has been with outside entities shooting videos with them. How about try interviewing GW peeps? Yeah, I didn't watch the videos, but I saw them show up on my feed. And I talked a little bit with Dave, actually, online. And he said that they were going to UK and he was going to be hanging out with Duncan and stuff like that, and so that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I might do an interview with one of those guys. Maybe interview Duncan at Adepticon. I know he's going to be there. Or somebody, maybe Eddie, who's a guy that I usually end up talking to when I'm there. He's on their Twitch channel a lot. He's one of their community guys. He's a good dude. So yeah, that's a potential thing. Like the one thing I don't generally want to do, which I used to do when I was at Beasts of War, and it's just a different channel, it's a different way they do it, is that when I was with Beasts of War, it was like, okay, go talk to these people and these people and these people. And I generally want to, for my channel now, because I'm not trying to do it like as a marketing thing as much. You know, I'm not trying to be a news thing and find out about all the new cool stuff. I'm trying to be a little bit more evergreen. Because the thing is that when you break the news about some, you know, new game, that's really cool. But 3 years from now, it's not that cool. And people don't watch it as much. But if you are like, well, this is how you know, how do you paint a bronze statue? That's still useful information 3 years from now. So I try to do stuff that's maybe a little bit more evergreen. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I don't like, and also again, like I said, I try not to do too many videos during Adepticon because then, you know, it takes away from my Adepticon time. Josh McCarthy says, "I'll see you there on Wednesday night, Adam." That means at Adepticon. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. Gaddis Gaming says they better announce Plastic Sisters of Battle or I'm going to riot. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I have not heard anything. Let's see here. Do you believe that the return of Battlefleet Gothic would have a big impact on games such as X-Wing and Armada? No. Because, well, if they make the Battlefleet Gothic ships pre-painted, then maybe. But Star Wars is still bigger than, you know, Warhammer 40K as a license. So, yeah. So if it's not pre-painted, which I'm pretty sure it won't be because Games Workshop's not really having that. They want you to buy paints and brushes, which makes sense because they sell them. Yeah, I think that you'll still have the people who want to play X-Wing because it's Star Wars and because they don't have to paint it. So when you say, hey, would you rather play Battlefleet Gothic, which is not Star Wars, and you do have to paint it, you know, that's going to be a relatively easy solution for them. Now, for the people who like Battlefleet Gothic, liked it in the past, they're going to be super excited. People who like 40K in general, I'm sure they might be also excited. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. What else have we got here? I got behind in the chat. There we go. All set up. Twerch says, okay, I'm out of the loop, but I saw the combat cards video. What are they? I don't know either. The video was silly. If you guys haven't seen it, there's this new thing. I think it's a new thing. I don't know. I'm assuming it's real because it's not April Fool's, so I don't know. But it was this video about this new thing from Warhammer called combat cards, which has... It looks like it's just a card game that's got pictures of models on it that have point... I don't know. But it was like this super sort of anime, like not Dragon Ball Z. What's the other one? Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing where it was a battle between somebody, I don't remember who, and Duncan. And they were playing their cards and doing all this stuff, and there was, you know, lightning and level 9,000 and all that kind of shenanigans going on at the end. And then you've got, you know, at the very end when he wins, you've got Duncan doing the... it was crazy. And I just watched that video and I was like, is this an actual product or are they just really screwing around over there? I mean, it's fun. You know, I like to see that kind of side of GW versus what we used to get. But yeah, I don't really know much about it. I don't know if it's something that you use in your army or if it's just a completely separate card game. They just decided to go, well, heck, let's make a card game. So yeah, but it was like a anime parody definitely that they had done. Fellhate says, I wish they had released 4 or 5 gangs for Necromando at launch. It's technically Necromunda. Just because YouTube thinks that it's Necromando, that's not the case. I think that, I mean, it's very difficult, I think, for them to drop 4 or 5, you know, big crews like that at once. you know, there's only so much production time that they can spend sometimes, and there's only so much money that they've got, even though they're the biggest in our industry. Our industry is still super crazy tiny. Like if it was Hasbro could drop that kind of stuff all at once. But like you see, like they pushed a lot with Stormcast Eternals for Age of Sigmar. They pushed a lot with Primaris stuff. But if you look at the newest release for the Blood Angels, they came out with one new model, which is like a Primaris Blood Angels captain or something. So yeah, it's, you know, they can't all be home runs, I guess. They came out with the 2 crews, which made sense because you had to at least have the 2 crews in the box. Yeah, it's really difficult to drop like a game and also a whole bunch of models all at once, and a whole bunch of, you know, all this stuff at once. They kind of, and there's probably a financial reason beyond just that it's expensive, but there's probably something about kind of like leaking out the stuff a little bit maybe makes you more money over time. I'm not sure. I'm no finance scientist, but yeah. JP Got Rockets, hey JP, says Kevin Roundtree. Kevin Roundtree is the CEO, the new CEO at Games Workshop, who's been turning the ship around, as it were. Kevin Roundtree is a huge fan of specialist games, and he's bringing them back. And that's why we're seeing stuff like Necromunda, and that's why we're like, and you know, and Battlefleet Gothic is going to be coming back, and a bunch of other stuff. It'll be interesting to see when and if they come back with Mordheim. That'll be very interesting to see. Let's see here. Antonin says 40K cards seem real. They're advertised on the GW website. Well, that's frankly more research than I had done, so I appreciate it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Billy Ray says, did he talk about the new Age of Sigmar thing yet? I didn't, and I don't know what the new Age of Sigmar thing is yet. So follow up and let me know, and then I'll see if I have heard of it or not. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. Thor says, should GW keep making plastic Horus Heresy kits like Kelth and Prospero? I think it depends on how they're selling. You know what I mean? Like they did the Betrayal of Kelth, and then they did the Prospero thing, and maybe they didn't sell that well, and that's why they've slowed their roll a little bit. Or maybe it's just more stuff's coming down the road. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that Horus Heresy is a very specific sub-niche to some degree of 40K, you know what I mean? It's one of those deals where it's not something that everybody plays, and so I can see why they don't push as much resources into it, but yeah. Graydon says, you could do a series on the importance of narrative play to improve your competitive play games. See, I usually see them as being very different things, narrative play and competitive play. That's interesting that I'll have to think about that. Gaddis Gaming says, how many comparison videos will there be between 40K and Star Wars Legions next year? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm not super interested in Star Wars Legions. After seeing it at Gen Con, I just was kind of underwhelmed, personally. I don't know. I just don't... Like, it just did not blow my skirt up. I don't know if that... I wasn't wearing a skirt, actually, so that's probably why. But, yeah, I don't know. And I know a lot of people are getting excited about it, but I just personally don't... And I'm a little tired of Star Wars, almost. I'm not going to lie. You know, like, I still want to go see the movies and stuff like that, but I don't need the Star Wars bed sheets anymore, much to my wife's chagrin, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't know if it's... I don't know if it's that or if it's just the mechanics of it, like that weird bendy ruler, and the custom dice, and I don't know. It just didn't light my fire, as it were, during Gen Con, and so I'm still not... And I don't know. Fantasy Flight and miniatures games... I mean, outside of X-Wing and to some degree Armada, like they didn't really set the world on fire with Rune Wars. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm probably one of the few, but I'm just not sure. I'm backing up because I'm missing things here. If everyone who bought from a store tried to play there, if the store has space, you would never get into this place alone to get a game in. Well, that's probably true, certainly. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that I think it's interesting for those of us who do generally play in stores when we think that everybody plays in stores, but we're actually not true. That's not true. So, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I honestly, the only reason I've been playing in stores lately, partially is because my basement is a wreck. So, I'm in the process, as I've been saying for quite some time, but I'm in the process. Many times I do, well, not many times, specific times when I'm playing with certain friends, I would just rather have them over because then we can have some cocktails or, you know, snacks or whatever and that kind of stuff. Whereas they frown on it if you drink cocktails at the store for reasons. Anyway, yeah, that kind of stuff. But then on the other hand, if I'm going to be playing against somebody I don't know, I want to play them at the store because I don't want them over to my house touching my stuff because maybe they're a cannibal. I don't. That's probably not the case. Hey Adam, could you please do a video on how to obtain paints and painting materials when starting wargaming when you aren't sure how much you want to invest in the hobby? So how to start sort of cheaply. I mean, not cheaply, but like almost like modular. Like if you just buy these paints, you can get away with it for a while until, yeah, maybe that might be something. Drip feeding releases makes you more money. GW customers are more likely to buy more smaller purchases than a big thing in one go. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if you were to like drop a whole bunch of stuff all at once with a big new release, then sometimes, yeah. Well, it happened a couple years ago with Fantasy Flight games. So Fantasy Flight had like a big X-Wing wave and also Imperial Assault and also Armada, and they were going to be spaced out. And then there was, I believe, a dock workers strike on the West Coast, and all the stuff that was boated over from China all sat at the docks for months and months and months. And then finally this strike was done, or I don't know, they got other people to do the work, or I don't know what happened. But it all ended up at their warehouses basically at the same time. And then they were like, well, we're losing money, and they just dumped it all out there, which means if you were a fan of Star Wars games from Fantasy Flight, they all came out at once of kind of it. So then people were like, well, I can't buy, you know, Imperial Assault and Armada and Wave 8 or whatever it was all at the same time this week because then I can't eat, you know? So that was sort of a problem. And that's one of the reasons why they do generally kind of drip stuff out a little bit too, I think. Dark Iridan says, there used to be a 40K card game a few years ago. Yeah, it was called Conquest, and it was kind of what they call a living card game, an LCG, kind of along the lines of like Netrunner. From what I understand, it was very, very much like Netrunner. And then it wasn't like Magic where you don't know what you're going to get. You buy the box and you know what you're going to get, and then they come out with new decks later on, and you know what's in the deck. So it's not like random pack. So you could then keep modifying and building your deck, but you're not like chasing those good cards. You just like, well, there's a new deck that came out. It's got these cards in it. I don't want any of those cards. I'll wait till the next deck. Or, oh, I do like this and this and this because it'll help my deck do this. And so you buy that deck. This, I don't know what it is. I'm hoping it's not random pack like Magic because I don't know that GW wants to get into that game, but we'll see. Love Orlok. It's like Uncle Adam with shotguns. I guess I haven't seen that particular portion of it. Yeah. Oh, Esther says the new AOS thing is a 20-second teaser for more information. Oh yeah, so that's the Malign Portents thing. I'm hoping it's a whole bunch of new skeleton sculpts. And honestly, this thing, which just happens to be sitting here, because when I come home, I have a tendency to set everything on the dining room table like a savage. Anyway, yeah, the sepulchral guard. Those models are awesome, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm super excited to get them together and play them in Shadespire. I'm also hoping that also means that they've been sculpting new death stuff, Death Rattle specifically, for Age of Sigmar. So hopefully that's what that. Now, because there's like a ship in that trailer, I wonder if there'll be like pirate skeletons, which then I'm not exactly as excited because I'm just not. Pirates are not my thing. I don't know why. Anyway, but yeah, because otherwise I would have bought Rum and Bones from Cool Mini like quite some time ago and painted up those guys. But I'm just not super into pirates. I mean, I don't know why. It's just sometimes you like things and sometimes you don't. Dan Can says, I'm relatively new to the hobby. Has anyone got Skaven, and are they harder to paint? I think Skaven are relatively simple to paint because you can just basically like prime them like with brown if you can find like a nice dark brown primer, or you could prime them black and then dry brush them brown, like pretty heavily, and then lighter dry brush like a lighter brown, and then you really get the raised bits of the fur and stuff like that. And then throw like a wash over it, maybe do another little quick highlight, and all your fur is done. Like they're I think pretty easy to paint. Now they've got armor and swords and all that other jazz, those little tails and all that junk. But as a base, painting that fur is not. I don't find it to be that difficult. New AOS undead models are ghost pirates. Boo! I don't want ghost pirates. I want regular skeletons. Oh, jeez. Everything went slidey. There we go. Torch says, Skaven aren't harder, but they are small and you need a lot of them. That is one downside to Skaven, is that you do need a lot of them. Sharni says, Adam, have you done Undercoat Reviews? Your thoughts on the different Undercoat brands, both Rattlecan and Airbrush, and same with the different clear coats. I've been meaning for a long time to do like a matte varnish showdown and see which matte varnish works the best. I generally use Tester's Dull Coat in the little spray can, but I do want to look at like the matte varnish from Army Painter and the matte varnish from Vallejo, which you would generally fire through a airbrush. So I do want to see that and kind of go through that stuff. As far as Undercoat Reviews, I haven't really done that too much. I mostly use... On terrain, I generally use Rattlecan, but not always. Like if I'm trying to do a piece of terrain in the winter, well, then I'm going to use Airbrush. But I kind of like Rattlecan with terrain more, but with models, I generally stick to Airbrush. And for most of my Airbrush priming, I almost always use Vallejo. But I haven't really done any like actual sit down and like try to figure out which is the better one. I'm not even sure what you would do in that situation. Like try to see how easy it is to rub off, maybe? I've seen stuff like that before. People have primed pieces of plastic with different types of primers and then taken like a toothbrush and tried to see how easy it is to get off or something. And I don't remember what the outcome was, frankly, but I have seen something like that. Torch says, I want to play Star Wars Legions, but I don't want to buy it. Well, maybe you should convince one of your friends to buy it, and then you could play their version. That's the best thing I got. Let me see here. Do you think Games Workshop will update Horus Heresy rules to 8th edition? I know there's been some news about it. Like they were saying, no, we're going to keep it to 7th edition, and then there's been some talk that maybe we're going to update it anyway, and I'm not sure what the outcome has been, so I don't know. I've never played a Horus Heresy either, so I don't really know. I know of some guys who do play, but I don't know the answer to that, sadly. Wade says, have you ever played any of the Middle-earth strategy battle games? The rules seem pretty cool, and I'm looking at getting into it. I bought the original hardcover for Lord of the Rings. I think they just called it Lord of the Rings Strategy Battle Game, SBG. And I own that. It's a big thick hardcover, but it is a very interesting rule set. It came out, I don't know, sometime in the mid 2000s maybe. And I remember looking at it and going, these rules are very different than Games Workshop's normal rules. It was very different than Fantasy, and it was very different than 40K. It was really kind of cool sort of skirmish battle. It is a cool game system, I think, just from reading the rules and stuff. I like the movies. I've read a couple of the books. I read, The Hobbit, of course. And I started reading Fellowship of the King when I was a kid, and Fellowship of the Ring. I started reading that when I was a kid, and I just couldn't get into it. And then the movies came out eventually, and then I was like, oh, good. So my wife thinks I'm a heathen for saying that because she is a huge fan of the books. But nonetheless, yeah, I don't know. It's I honestly wanted to play that game system, but not with those models. I just didn't really like many of the models. I liked the orc models, but all the rest of the models just didn't seem right to me in some fashion. The Lake Town houses, though, that they put out after the Hobbit movies came out, the terrain kit for Lake Town houses, those are sweet. I bought a set of those. Just because they're going to be great for lots of different games. I could use them for Frostgrave. I could use them for Song of Blades and Heroes. I could use them for pretty much. I could use them for Age of Sigmar if I want to. You know, so yeah, they'll be. Those are really great kits. Headhunter says, speaking of custom dice, do you think they contribute something useful to gaming, or do they make it more cumbersome? I understand why they do it in X-Wing. I understand why they do it in Shadespire. In a normal miniatures game, I feel like they're doing it to sell dice. So let me explain that. Like, in a normal miniatures game, you're generally focusing on, here's a target number. You have to try to hit the target number. You either hit the target number or you didn't hit the target number. And in that situation, custom dice is silly. But in a game like, say, Shadespire, for example, we were just talking about this, a friend of mine and I. So, like, you know, one army uses the hammers symbol, the other army uses the swords, and it's not even army to army. Sometimes within a specific warband, some guys use the sword icons and some guys use the, you know. You could completely do that entire thing with normal numbered dice. But then you'd be like, okay, well, is a 6, does that mean that if I have an ally also in combat with this guy that it worked? Or is that the 5? I can't, you know what I mean? So because it's not just like meet or beat this target number, in that situation I understand why they have the custom dice, because there are all these different weird kind of situations and it would be difficult to do it that way. The way they got around it with a game like Wrath of Kings from Cool Mini or Not is they just were like, okay, here's the numbers from 0 or from 1 to 10, roll a 10-sider, and then on each unit's card, it will have all these different weird ranges, and the numbers can change and move around. And I thought that was a really smart system on their part. But if it being a normal miniatures game, I don't know. Whenever I see custom dice like that in a normal miniatures game, like they did the same thing with Rune Wars, I was just kind of like, nah, I don't know, man. Like it kind of makes sense in regular X-Wing. I think though that frankly they could have just used regular dice in X-Wing too. They could have used regular whatever they are, 8-siders, no 10-siders, 8-siders, and then just said that, you know, like 0 through 3 is a miss, and then this and this is a hit, and then, you know, this is a focus. But I don't know. I think it's because it's not just a target number you're looking for in that game. So yeah. I don't know. It's my own personal issue. I just sometimes don't like custom dice like that in a regular miniatures game. Something that's a little bit more board gamey can make sense, I think. What else have we got? Scrolling through, I'm behind. The Noob Painter says, I'm not the biggest Fantasy Flight games. I'm not the biggest fantasy. I'm thinking you missed a word there, dude. Fan, probably, I'm assuming. Everything they make is too convoluted. I don't know about everything. I think that X-Wing was a great system. Now, from what I understand, they didn't technically develop it because it's kind of the same system as what they used to call Wings of War, which is now called Wings of Glory, which is like a airplane combat game. And they tweaked it and stuff, but it's kind of along those same lines. But yeah, I always thought X-Wing was pretty cool. I've played Armada a couple of times. It was neat, but I was already playing X-Wing, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do both. You know what I mean? I almost saw it to some degree as them trying to cannibalize their own market, which is weird, but there it was. Rune Wars, I just didn't like. I've played it twice now, and I just didn't like it. So that's kind of a bummer, because I actually really like the skeleton models. From like a more cartoony-looking skeleton, like a cartoony undead, I like them quite a bit. So yeah. JP Got Rockets is not a fan of weird measuring devices or proprietary dice. Yeah, same here. Same here. With GW, I heard the number could be up to 80% of purchasers don't even play, let alone tournament. I could definitely believe that. I think there are a lot of people who buy the models and put them together and paint them because they really like to put together and paint models, and they just like to put them on their shelf. I think that. And I'm not a tournament player, but I think that a lot of tournament players, just like I was talking about before, when you're at the shop playing Friday Night Magic, you just assume all Magic players play Friday Night Magic. when you're a tournament player, you just assume that you're the only market for Games Workshop. But really, for years, Games Workshop's biggest market was younger kids who bring mom into the store, or dad, and and convince them to buy this and this and this, and then they go home and they half put it together, and then they lose interest and then throw it in the garbage. And like that cycle was what was keeping them afloat for a number of years. And eventually they realized, no, we really need to not just do the one-offs like that. We really need to get these people to keep coming back. And that's why they've changed their business practices a lot, and they've tried to make it a little bit better. That all being said, the tournament playing market is a small portion of the people who actually buy the models. The upside, though, to the tournament playing market is it has wide reach when you're messing around on the internet, and it's because of the internet. Before this, it didn't really have nearly as wide a reach. If you weren't at the tournament, you didn't generally know too much about the tournament. Now, you do a search for, Warhammer 40,000 on YouTube or on Google or whatever, you're going to find a lot of tournament coverage, and you're going to see amazing looking armies and these huge groups of people playing. And as a person who's thinking about it, you're like, well, that looks kind of cool. And a lot of people seem to like it. And so then that's just helping to get you to kind of tip over into jumping into the hobby. The problem, I think, sometimes comes from then you start to trying to go to a convention or to a tournament because you think that's how the game is played, and then you get squashed or whatever, and it's a bummer. So that's why I think they're also trying to focus a little bit more on pushing these days more the open play and the narrative play and stuff like that. So I think it's a good idea. Miniac has a video about starting mini wargaming with just primary color acrylics. Yeah, I mean that's kind of a good idea, I mean, if you can. I generally have a tendency to not mix my paints too much. I mean, every once in a while you're like, oh, I need a lighter color of this, so you add a little bit of white to it, or you add a little dark to it. But in general, I just like to have lots of paints because I can then go back and look at my recipe and then be like, oh, okay, well, I need to paint these guys the same color as the other guys now, and now I know what paint to use. Whereas if it was like, well, for this one specific thing, I happen to mix up this one color, and I don't remember how much of blue I added to it versus how much green or whatever, then that makes it difficult. So, but that all being said, understanding how the primary colors work together is kind of a good idea. That maybe is a good idea for a video right there, honestly. Well, like I said, Miniac did a video about that, so yeah. Because, I mean, I went to school for art, and we learned all that stuff in school about how to mix paints and how to get specific colors and which colors do what and all this kind of jazz. But obviously, probably most of you didn't, because you were probably smarter than that and didn't go to school for art. But yeah, that's, yeah, I could definitely see that. Let's see here. Demont says, learning to use craft paints will save you a bundle, and gluing with CA will help when you want to strip and disassemble your first poorly painted batch of minis. Craft paints are... I use craft paints on terrain. I don't generally use them on models because the pigments are not nearly as finely ground. So when you put them on terrain, it's okay because terrain is generally big and you don't notice it as much. But when the thing you're painting is only this big, and then you need to... it can be real chalky. Though that's generally the problem, is your models will sometimes come out very chalky. Now, there are people out there who do it and do it quite well, so you'd have to kind of maybe find the craft paint that you like the best. And those paints are admittedly way cheaper. You're getting like a good-sized bottle for like usually like $1, as opposed to $4 for like a little tiny pot. But the miniature paints, the paints that are designed for miniatures are designed in a way in that the pigments are way smaller. And so you don't get as much of a chalky look. It doesn't look like you've put paint on the model. If you do it right, it looks like the model's that color. That's the best way that I kind of explain like a good paint job, like a good technical paint job, is it doesn't look like there's paint on the model. It looks like the model was that color to begin with or whatever. So yeah, then that takes some work. Frankie Lee Bailey says the Primaris are a good way to get started. You can get the small set of push fit Marines, then get one of those how to paint sets for Ultramarines or Dark Angels, plus the colors on the box. Yeah, no, definitely. There are many, like they've been doing some good work, Games Workshop specifically, on these kind of like how to get started painting. You know, there's like a little box that comes with some Primaris dudes and some paints and stuff like that. And they're not the full size paints; they're smaller paints, but it's definitely a good starter for that kind of stuff. Let's see here. What are we talking about? Hero Quest Owl Dice. Yeah. That's a whole bunch of. Torch says, your wife's right, Adam. The books are brilliant. Oh, I don't disagree that the books are brilliant. Talking about Lord of the Rings. I just, as a kid, when I first started reading the Fellowship of the Ring, you know, it was just, I was just like, and then so then the guy tripped over a log in the forest. And then there's a page and a half about how the forest sounded at that time. And then there's a page about how his cloak looked as he tripped over the log. And then there's a page about the log. And then there's a song about the log. And then there's just... And for me at the time as a kid, I was just like not interested. And now there's the movies. And so I'm just like, I will sit down and watch those movies. Absolutely. But she still reads the books, I think like once a year or so. She reads through all of them. And she's even finished the Silmarillion now. So that's that one's a tough one from what I understand. But she's an English major and she likes reading tough books, so that's good. I mean, she was. She's not anymore. She graduated. Mr. Armor, totally with you on the book Lord of the Rings. I've tried more times than I care to count. I just can't get anywhere. Without the films, I've never known the story. Yeah, I know what you mean. Adam Fire says, so I think that means Age of Sigmar, is technically the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Currently on 8th edition 40k. Can you see Tzeentch influence in the change? 9 being his number? Maybe. I guess. Yeah, I mean, and what's Khorne's number is 8, right? Or is that Nurgle? No, Nurgle's 7. Yeah. Anyway, I guess it could be Tzeentch that did that. I guess that makes some sense. Question, do you think that Wizards of the Coast should do a wargame RPG for revamped Birthright? I don't know that Wizards of the Coast wants to get into that area. I mean, technically they've got Hasbro money behind them, so they could. They did kind of a weird sort of a board gamey miniatures thing for Magic. Something about Planeswalkers. And I think they might have been pre-paints, which meant they were kind of weird looking. But yeah, I don't know that they're gonna. I don't know that that's a thing that they want to get into. I think that, I mean, maybe, but I from just the research that we've been doing for the app that we're working on at work, my day job, wargaming is probably the smallest of the 4 genres within tabletop gaming. 4 genres are board gaming, which is basically the biggest, and then there's RPGs and CCGs. Like CCGs, collectible card games like Magic and stuff like that, Pokemon. And then there's wargaming. And I think wargaming is probably of the 4 the smallest niche. So when you're a company that is printing money, literally printing money with Magic cards, they look, I think, at the wargaming market and go, I don't know. Now, as the wargaming market gets bigger, then at some point they might go, well, we'll throw some resources into it, and then maybe we'll see. I think that maybe that Planeswalker game that Magic did, that, like I said, was kind of a war game, miniatures game, board game gateway kind of thing, that may have been testing the water, dipping a toe in, and I don't know that it sold super well, and maybe that's indicative, and that's why we haven't seen more wargaming stuff come out of Wizards of the Coast. It would be interesting to see them jump into the market. I think that Games Workshop would definitely certainly take notice because, like I said, they're Wizards is a way bigger company. So yeah, it'd be very interesting. But I think that I think Wizards would be starting off with 2 problems. Number one, they'd be on their back foot because they don't have the experience. Games Workshop's been making these games for 30 plus years. So just the experience of knowing like the best modeling techniques and all this kind of jazz, I think they would have to try to catch up on that. Wizards would. And then secondly, I think Wizards would look at it and go, we need to be able to really target the beginners, and that's why they make these pre-painted things, and then that's why they sometimes kind of look not very good, and they don't necessarily pull in the beginners that you'd hope. So maybe that's part of the issue too. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if something like that happens. Hey, Uncle Adam, have you had any experience with the new Primaris Chaplain kit? I'm building it as we speak, and I'm super excited to paint it. Yeah, I'm really excited to paint my Primaris guys too. I think I have the Chaplain. I know I have the Apothecary, and I have the Captain in Gravis armor, because he comes in the Imperial or Dark Imperium box. But then I also have the regular Primaris Captain, who's not in Gravis armor. And I don't remember if I got... I think I have a Librarian. I don't think that I've got a Chaplain. I mean, I like the look of the Chaplain. It's a cool looking model. But I don't think I have that one. Hey Adam, what do you think of Corvus Belli's Infinity? The sculpts and game system look pretty great, but sadly nobody here in my area plays it. Some people in my area around here do play it, and they like it quite a bit. I don't like the models a ton. I don't dislike the sculpts per se. Like, I think the artwork and stuff like that is cool. I've tried building some of the models. They're metal, first of all, and I'm not a big fan of metal models. Secondly, many of them... Well, that's not true. I like metal models if they're not too many pieces. And that's the problem with a lot of the models from Corvus Belli, in my opinion. Like, if you're into them and you want to take all the time and pin them, they've got great dynamic poses and they're really super cool looking. But they're also really fiddly, at least in my opinion, to build. And all that stuff. So that's problematic for me. Secondly, I do not enjoy the game system. It's just to me, it's just a very backwards kind of game system. It almost feels, and I mentioned this to someone recently, to me it feels like somebody sat down and wrote a wargame system and they never played a wargame. I'm not saying it's a bad system, it's just everything is very, very different, and that sort of throws me off. I don't know, but I know people like it. It's been getting more and more popular here in America. They're on their 3rd edition now. It's been definitely gaining steam. They've got bigger and bigger booths at like places like Gen Con and Adepticon, and that's great. And I love that people really enjoy it, and I like that it's a cool skirmish game that people dig. It's just not for me. But if you're into it, if you like the look of the models, and you want to take the time to build the very fiddly metal models, like I said, I'm not completely against metal models. I like them when they're not too many parts. Like maybe it's a body and like an arm or two, or a head. But with like I put one model together for years ago for Infinity, and I bet it was probably at least a dozen pieces. You know, for a guy this big, and it was rough. So yeah, so that's just my own personal preference. If you like it, then you should definitely look into getting into it. But the downside then is also, as with any game, if there's nobody in your area that plays it, you've got a steep hill to climb. So there's that. Yeah, I'm way too far behind. Let's see here. Frankie Lee Bailey, I paint and assemble way more than I play. I love to customize. Heavy flamers are one-hand weapons for salamanders. Heresy is for me, yay. It's a good idea. Yeah, I do also like to... I mean, I want to start doing a little bit more kit bashing. And I do want to do a video about kit bashing as well. I've been kind of planning on that. Michael Strickler says, I remember I tried to get my parents to buy me Warhammer 40k because my dad used to play D&D, and I thought it was more likely he would, but for me it didn't work. But I still got hooked. Well, good. I'm glad to use. I mean, you know, obviously you still got hooked. Yeah, I don't know that. Like, I don't know that. I think I bought my own first models. My parents didn't buy me those. I mean, I got other presents and stuff. I got like when the first Star Wars movie came out. Like the Christmas after, or maybe the Christmas after that, when the toys really started to ramp up. One Christmas, I got just a gross amount of Star Wars stuff. Just nuts, you know. It was one of those deals where it's like you're trying to sleep as a little kid Christmas night, and you're like dreaming like, wouldn't it be super cool if I got all this stuff, this and this and this and this, and then you actually wake up in the morning and like, I think my dad had gotten a bonus at work or whatever, or something like that, and so I had like a, you know, I got the X-Wing and a TIE Fighter and a Land Speeder and the Millennium Falcon and the Death Star, and it was just like, it was almost everything they made for Star Wars at that time, which at the time it was like the first movie, so it wasn't, you know, the gross amount of stuff there is now, but it was a lot of stuff. And I was just floored as a kid when I woke up the next morning. That was like the best. That all being said, when I started getting into models, I was old enough where I was just buying my own models, as far as, you know, miniatures and stuff like that. I did paint like model airplanes and things like that. My dad got me some model airplanes, and I don't think I ever had any model cars. I think it was just model airplanes. I remember building a B-25 Mitchell, a de Havilland Mosquito, I want to say a Spitfire, stuff like that. Yeah. I should, every once in a while, I kick around the idea, like, I should do some airplanes again. I mean, I used to work for a company that was just airplanes, airplanes, airplanes all day long. I worked for them for 8 years, and I never built an airplane model that entire time. I was building Space Marines and Tau and, you know, Putrid Blight Kings and all that kind of junk. Let's see here. Blaze says, my mum honestly kicked me into Warhammer. I don't go socialize a lot, but when I don't go socialize a lot, but I do when I go to play, and that was her goal. Well, that was very good of her. That was, yeah, definitely. That was great. I think that there are a lot of people who, and this is maybe also a big portion of why we were talking before about how a lot of people don't play in shops, is because they've got anxiety about meeting new people, or they're shy, or whatever the deal is. And so they've got some certain friends, and they all get into Warhammer, and they all play at each other's house all the time or whatever. And that's totally cool. You know, I like to play. I like to play at the shop lately, like I said, because my basement's kind of a wreck. But I don't generally just sit at the shop and wait for someone to come in. Like, I usually set up with somebody I kind of know. Either I know them quite well, or I know them sort of from seeing them around the shop, and we set up like an appointment. But like, I've never just sat at the shop with my army and waited for someone to come in and play a pickup game. I've always organized something in some fashion and then played at the shop. But yeah, I don't know, just hanging around the shop in general does help you to meet people. And so, you know, it was smart of her to make that move. That was a good idea. Oh, what else have we got? Okay, I think we're finally kind of caught up. Let's see here. People are talking about sandwiches. Now I'm hungry for lunch. Man, I wish we were going to go to... I wish we were going to go to Potbelly. So anyway, I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, or last 2 weeks ago, but there's a Potbelly sandwich place now in Oshkosh, where I live. And I like Potbelly quite a bit. And if you were at Gen Con and you were at the meetup, the Tabletop Meetings meetup, it was at a Potbelly sandwich place because it was relatively near the convention center. And so I've only been there once so far. I've been good. I've only been there once since it opened, but I do enjoy a good sandwich. Jay Freeze says, I'm hoping Santa will bring me a Redemptor Dreadnought. So I built that Redemptor Dreadnought. It was 3,200 pieces. I think I'm over-exaggerating. But it was a lot of pieces. And now they're coming out with a easy-to-build version of the kit as well, which is obviously not customizable. It only goes together one way, and you can only have like one weapon combination and all that stuff. But they're doing it in 12 pieces. I can't even imagine how they're doing it in only 12 pieces. That's crazy. Like, I almost want to buy one just to look at it and go, how did they make this 12 pieces when I had took 3 days to put together the other one? Because, like, seriously, that Redemptor Dreadnought on this hand, he's got a hand, and each of the fingers, there's like 3 fingers and a thumb on that hand, and each of the fingers, was each finger 2 pieces, or was each finger a piece, and then the hand was 2 pieces, and then the thumb was, it was just, like, just the one arm, just the left arm, if you include like the onslaught cannon, the little one, and the shoulder and the whole deal, was probably 30 pieces, just one arm. And then, of course, there was the other arm, as it turns out, and then the legs and all that stuff. And to be able to basically make the same model, not the same model, like I said, not as customizable, but make something that to the untrained eye, you could look at them standing next to each other and say, those look like they're the same model, but one has half the amount of parts that the other one has in its left arm. That's astounding to me. So that's kind of why I want to get one, just because I want to see what that's all about. Let's see here. What else have we got? Jay Freeze asked his parents for some fantasy elves about 20 years ago. Still waiting. Yeah, I asked my parents for a Commodore 64 when I was a kid, and I'm still waiting on that one. It's not going to happen. I've got this is probably a bit more powerful than a Commodore 64. Man, I was trying to figure out how to like when I was a kid, trying to sell your family on getting a home computer was difficult. You know, now it's just like everybody does it because it's how you get your email if you don't use your phone or whatever, and that kind of stuff. And it's how you do a lot of different things. So now it's not hard for kids to say, come on, let's buy a computer. But back in the early 80s, because I'm old, trying to get your parents to buy a $800 computer in the early 80s, it's an uphill battle, at least in my family. So yeah. Arturo says, I'm just painting some Dead Zone Enforcers. I'm trying to love them, but they're not Space Marines. Seems my wallet can't escape from the clutches of GW. I mean, I painted a bunch of Enforcers and the Plague guys from the original Dead Zone box. The material is not as nice, but it's also far cheaper, I mean, to buy the models. They are now starting to make regular, like, kind of hard plastic, you know, models more and more, but they're still making some of them in that rustic kind of stuff, which, like I said, it's not, you know, it's a little hard, it's not harder to build, in my mind. It's just not quite as nice, the detail's not as sharp, but again, like I said, the price is frequently half of Games Workshop, so, you know, you get that. But I did like the Enforcer guys, and the Plague guys I even like too. I don't like my paint job I did on them, frankly. They're okay, but they're not great. Well, not that I do any great paint jobs, but they're not as good as I would have liked. But if I was to repaint them now, I would probably do better, hopefully. But yeah, so that's, I don't know. I do like some of the models that they do. I like the newest ones that they're doing. The Star Saga models, I think, are some of... Because those are like, you know, you're buying it and it's a little bit more board gamey. They're cool shapes. Some of the sculpts are, again, because it's a softer plastic, are not quite as sharp detail-wise. But they're also making a couple new factions for Dead Zone that I think are pretty cool. And have cool sculpts and are just... So, yeah, it depends. You kind of go back and forth. But I think that they do some good work at Mantic, generally. And I'm definitely... I don't know. The more I think about it, I really should sit down, actually, and go through... Because I have a copy of, what the heck's it called? Of Walking Dead, and I think that might be a fun game to if I was to paint it up at some point and play it, I could like maybe run it at conventions and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll take a look into that. Yanosaurus Rex says 12 pieces is awesome, but he looks so static. It looks like he's powered down at the motor pool or something. Yeah, I do want to look at this. I haven't looked as much as I would like at the actual pose. I just heard about it. I saw like a thumbnail, and they're like, oh, in 12 pieces. And I was like, what? So I want to look at it like at the box when they get it to the store and really kind of get to gander at it. I don't know that I need two. You know what I mean? I already have one for my army. I don't know that I need two. But if it's not super expensive, I might just buy it just because it would be fun to kind of be able to show people like side by side. You know what I mean? Once I get them painted up, if I can paint them up the same, or the same quality, hopefully, then just be like, guess which one was 6,000 pieces and which one was 12, you know, that kind of thing. Yanosaurus Rex says, I remember my dad buying our first home computer. The guy said, it's got 800 megabytes of memory, more than you'll ever need. Yeah. Yeah. And now, like, I just read something recently that the power brick that you plug into a MacBook has more computing power in it than the original Apple Macintosh, little black and white, like desktop computer. Like, it has more computing power. The thing you plug into the wall to charge your MacBook, that thing has more computing power than the original Macintosh computer. It just drives me. It's nuts the way things have moved. Let's see here. I'm working on a wargame table that has been base painted, textured with sand. Any good tips for dry brushing? Go slow. It's better to put many layers that you may even not particularly notice at first than to try to do it too quickly and then just slop it all up. That's kind of true of life in general, but definitely when you're dry brushing something, you know, go slowly, be subtle with it, and build it up versus going, well, I want to dry brush this pretty quickly, and then you just go, and then there's just like a big smudge, and that's not dry brushed, that's a smudge. So yeah, that's my suggestion. I did that for years ago when the Realm of Battle boards first came out. I basically just 1 year for my birthday just told everybody, don't give me anything except for money. And then I took that money and then added money to it and then bought the Realm of Battle boards from Games Workshop, which is the big plastic. It's 6 2-foot by 2-foot pieces, and they're kind of deserty, sort of, or whatever. And you can do different things with it and set it up however you want. I made mine deserty because I like the desert. So yeah, I sprayed them like with a desert color Rust-Oleum, like the camo stuff that I love. And then I did a lot of dry brushing, and like the parts that get kind of rocky and craggy, and the cliffs, those I did more of a gray and then more of a white dry brush or a light gray dry brush to kind of give them, and they turned out pretty good. Cereal is a soup. I don't even know what you guys are talking about sometimes. That's fine. Dreadnoughts are cool. Get 5. Well, I mean, but Redemptor Dreadnoughts are huge in lots of points, so I don't know. I do have a smaller. I don't know. I got it on eBay someplace, and it's the Forge World Dreadnought. And it's the Black Templar version, so it's got all the Black Templar iconography, which for my army is what I'm using. I'm just not painting them Black Templar colors. I'm calling it Steel Cross, and it's more blue and silver, and so I'm going to eventually use that guy, and he's got a missile launcher and twin las cannon, and I'm going to use him, and he's just like super just covered in iconography and all kinds, because it's a Forge World model, and he's just covered with like cool stuff. So eventually he's going to end up in my army, but not in the first 2,000 points, I don't think. I'll have to go back and look at my list. Kelly says, hey Adam, Merry Christmas. Did you use your secret weapon washes on your Malifaux flesh? How about a video showing... Oh, hang on. How about a video showing your techniques on those? How many passes do you go over the models with? Do I use... Mostly the time when I'm using like secret weapon washes, I'm honestly using them over... Like I did that video about understanding underpainting, which is fun to say. And in that... I did a bunch of Malifaux models, and I primed them black, and then I dusted them from above with white. So they've got this kind of gradient. And then I went through and did most of the colors as washes, using secret weapon washes, which are really technically glazes, which is another story. That being said, the skin tones were not just washes. The skin tones I threw like... I'm trying to remember how I did those specifically. I may have thrown down a khaki color with a brush in all the skin areas to block it out, then gone over it with a flesh color, and then just used some sort of flesh wash, maybe a GW one, and then gone back and highlighted with a little bit lighter flesh. That's pretty much about it. That's generally how I do my flesh, which is why it doesn't always look that great, but it looks okay. I did roughly the same. I did the same thing with the corn dudes from Shadespire. Like I primed them all, like a red oxide auto primer with a rattle can because it was nice out, and I want their armor to be that kind of dark red anyway. So then I had to go back and paint all the flesh parts, of which there were many because most of those dudes are shirtless. So yeah. Matthew Sears says, I'm not a huge Potbelly fan, but because of Adam, I have eaten it in several states. Well, there you go. I'm not sure what that means, but I mean, I know what it means, but I think it's good. I think it's good. He may not think it's good, but you know, one does need to spread one's wings or something. Blaze says, damn, apparently my 2 Venerable Dreadnoughts are rookie numbers. You got to pump that up. Nah, I don't think you have to. Venerable Dreadnoughts are cool, though. I think that I think my plan was to make that crazy Forge World Black Templar guy into a Venerable Dreadnought, because he looks venerable because he's covered in just stuff, just you know, Maltese crosses and ribbons and all kinds of stuff. He's got tons of stuff on him. He's a cool model. What AOS army are you using, or are you mostly 40k? For Age of Sigmar, my finished army right now is chaos. So it's predominantly Rotbringers, so Nurgle type stuff, but I've also got some Skaven in there, but I've also got some goat people, whatever. I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now, but you know who I'm talking about. Beastmen, thank you, Beastmen. And so that's one of the things I like about Age of Sigmar is how you can mix stuff together. Then my second army, which is in progress, is Death, mostly skeletons. And then my third army, which is purchased and basically sitting in a box, is going to be eventually Stormcast. So I'm still playing. I mean, honestly, these days right now, I'm still playing Age of Sigmar a little bit more than I'm playing 40k. So there's that. Because I've only got one 40k army painted right now, which is my Chaos. Then they're at 1,500 points. And but yeah. Yeah, right now I guess I'm probably still playing Age of Sigmar a little bit more. I'm hoping to start playing more 40k soon, but right now it's probably more Age of Sigmar. The Viper 595 says, "Will you still do a live show on Christmas Eve?" No, because that'll be next weekend. These are every 2 weeks. It's the every other Sunday show. But I will do a live show on New Year's Eve. I'm pretty sure the next one will be the 31st. Looking at the calendar. Yeah, next one's going to be the 31st. So next Sunday, which will be Christmas Eve, there won't be a show because it's in between. It's the every other Sunday show. So yeah. What else? Just finished my first Shadespire Reavers. That's what the Corn Bros are called. Never painted so pale skin before. Really happy how they turned out. I diversified my Reavers, so I've got a bunch of different skin tones going on there, from real light pale. There's like the guy who's their boss. He's got like I've given him a big red beard, so he's very kind of ginger and pale. And then it goes all the way to one guy who's basically like, like a very kind of dark skin tone, African almost to some degree. As it turns out, I wasn't looking at the cards, because if you look at the cards, one of the guys is painted that way, or is drawn that way, I guess. But I did that I used that skin tone on a different guy. Like, I wasn't paying close attention to the cards when I did that. And so sometimes when I'm playing, I'm looking at the card and I'm seeing that guy, and I'm like, but then I have to fix that in my head. But I just enjoyed, because it was like, I generally don't really paint a lot of models that have a lot of skin tones. So when those guys are basically all shirtless, I'm like, well, I want to go a little nuts and do a lot of different skin tones and kind of test stuff out. So that was a lot of fun. Scarnier says, our friendly local game store has a gaming guild. We have a chat going in Facebook to organize games for Wednesday night games. Yeah, I mean, a lot of different groups have figured out different ways to use social media to keep their groups together. The problem is sometimes trying to be able to find those groups. If those groups want more people to play in the groups, it's difficult amongst all the different forms of social media to find new players and to find people who would come, join your group, join your club, whatever, which is partially what, like I was talking about before, the app that we're working on at my day job, that's hopefully something that we'll be able to fix. That's kind of what we're looking for. Because right now it's like, well, we always use this, and we only ever use Facebook Messenger. Oh, well, we only use, we have a forum, and it's really hard to find all that stuff. So we're trying to kind of bring it together. Het 431, not 432. What's your opinion on GW's scale creep? Honestly, I was a little surprised at how small the Necromunda models were. I thought they were going to be, how like in Age of Sigmar, models seem to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're starting to see that, obviously, with the Primaris, they seem to be getting bigger to some degree. I kind of figured that would be the same thing with Necromunda, and it wasn't. Like the Escher gang, they're quite, slender and skinny and smaller. And the Goliaths, even for being as beefy as they're supposed to be, I thought they were going to be taller. I thought they were going to be... So it's not going across the board. I think that they're just doing it because, to some degree, just because it makes the models look cool from a distance, or it just makes them sometimes maybe easier to paint, you know, if they're really tiny, if it's sometimes harder. I don't know. I'm not against it. I think it gets to a point where all of a sudden it can get to the point where everything looks a little too big. I could see that if they got to that point. I don't know that they've gotten to that point yet. And again, it's kind of personal preference for everybody. But yeah, I'm okay with it. Let me see. What else have we got here? Oh, I just saw Kathy Wapple here. Hi, Kathy. Mecha82 says, I doubt most of us could even watch a stream at Christmas Eve. Well, I mean, you know, people have different... Some people only do stuff on Christmas Day, and they kind of hang out and do stuff by themselves on Christmas Eve sometimes, and they only see their family one day. Sometimes people do that on Christmas Eve and not Christmas Day, and everyone's got their own different traditions and such. So, yeah, we will be doing... And when you get married, then, of course, you usually have two sets of traditions. So, yeah, we'll be doing stuff on Christmas Eve with Emily's parents and Christmas Day with my mom. And I think we'll be seeing my brother as well. So, yeah, only if I get... if I got really bored one night, I might do an impromptu live show, but I don't know that that's the case. I think that I'm going to be seeing a lot of family this year. So, yeah. Kelly asks, follow-up to the secret weapon washes and all that stuff. I know you used Zenithal. How many passes over the Zenithal do you make? Less over the lighter colors. How many passes over of the wash? If you're talking about putting the washes over the Zenithal, I generally kind of just, again, it's kind of to taste, you know? Like if I'm, like one of the guys in that group of Malifaux dudes had like jeans on, so I used a dark blue kind of wash, and I put probably several layers on to kind of help to darken it up. Whereas in other things, if the color looks right on the first pass, then let it go. Also understand that in most situations, most paints will darken down, meaning they will get a little darker looking when they dry. So if it looks a little dark now, it will get even darker when they dry. If it looks a little light now, let it dry, and then you'll know, because it should darken down a little bit. So that's kind of how that works. I think did somebody say Nick Ramondo? I think they did. I actually thought about making a shirt that has like the hello, my name is Nick Ramondo on it. I might do that. I just think it's funny. I mean, nobody else will, but I might do that. So yeah. All right. Well, anyway, it's a little after 11, and I want to thank everybody for coming to the show today. And like I said, if you've got some ideas for some videos and stuff like that, once this video gets processed or whatever, because we're watching it live right now, and then it becomes a normal video on the YouTube channel, if you could go into those comments and say, hey, I've got this idea for a video, I would like it if you do this, that'd be great, because this chat will disappear as soon as this video is over. If you're watching this as a recording already, if you've got ideas for some videos, put them in the chat, and then I'll see what I can do. And it's always good to have that extra kind of I don't want to say it's a survey specifically of you, the audience, but it is definitely, I would want to know what you guys want to see videos about. So that'll be helpful. Anyway, I hope that if you celebrate Christmas, that you have a good one between now and the next time that I see you on the live show. And if you don't, I hope you have a good holiday or whatever it is you do. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks on New Year's Eve. And maybe I'll have a little cocktail or something, except it's going to be like 9 in the morning, so probably I won't. I'll just have coffee, probably. That's a good point. All right, so we'll see you guys later, and thanks for watching.